Hello folks, welcome to my YouTube channel, Watercolor Impressions. Last week we learned how to do a wintry painting, and this week I want to do a winter evening painting. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And let's get started, guys. I'll provide the drawing template. Check my video description to download it so you guys can follow with me with this tutorial. And in every painting I do, I say the exact same thing for my drawing, and focusing on the big shapes and going to primary, secondary and tertiary shapes. Being said that, if you want to get good at drawing, there is only one way to do it, and that way is to keep drawing. I wish there is an easy thing to do to get better at drawing. And I'm constantly moving my pencil. I'm also constantly comparing my shapes with one another. And it's okay to change your topographic details. What I mean by that, you can move a street light, you can move the buildings, because it's your painting. And that's an important thing to do it. And I also add a lot of figures, cars, everything, just to show the scale of the painting. That helps the viewer to observe the scene and shows them how big certain thing is compared to our painting. And when I did this painting, it's a little bit big when I do tutorials, but this is 11 by 15, and let's throw it on our first wash. For the first wash, there's a little bit of warmth in the sky, so I'm just using yellow ochre for it. And before it dries out, I'm going to introduce my blue sky. For the blue sky, you can use Cobalt Blue. That works really good. In any kind of painting you do, Cobalt Blue is necessary. And there's a lot of warmth in our scene, so I'm just gonna do a throw it on wash on everywhere, because that's a major color in our scene. The easiest way to think about major color is like what kind of setting is it. For example, if it's a morning scene, there will be a lot of pink, orangish in your the old scene. And if it's an evening scene, it's going to be a lot of warmth. And if it's like really afternoon, there's going to be a lot of warmth in it too. And being said that, there is not one way to do stuff, and you can change your mother color as you want. And you can see I started with the mid-ground building. Even though it looked white, I did put a little bit of pigment in there, because so it stand against the sky a little bit better, because the sky is the lighter part for us. And before it dries out, I'm going to introduce a mid-tone there. So watercolor does what it does. It bleeds and creates this magical impression, so we don't have to go and touch it again. And I'm also doing it in a quick confident strokes, and you can see I'm connecting that building with the background building as well. And if you squint your eyes, if you see the reference, there's a lot of warmth in there. And the background, I'm going to make this up. And I'm not worried about as I said when I was drawing, I'm not worried about the topographic details. The only thing I'm care about when I'm doing painting like this is to capture the mood, lighting and shadows, and showing a viewer that there's a scale in our painting as well. That's it. So I'm focusing on the left hand side of the painting. Even though there's a lot of details in there, I'm just gonna keep it minimum. And there was a fence, so I added that just to see that there is something happening. And for the snow, I usually use Cobalt Blue, and make sure to use white paint with it. If you use Cobalt Blue as it is, it's going to give a really darker value, and it's not going to sit well in the painting. So this is a major building, and I'm going to be focusing on a lot of details in there. If you see the old scene in our reference, I picked one way where my viewers eye have to go, and it have to be on the streetcar and this building. So I'm going to create a lot of contrast in the thing. And this is where gravity helps. If you want paint to bleed through from top to bottom, I just rotated this watercolor paper mounted on a piece of wood. And I went again and finished the second pass for the streetcar. And I'm also adding a little bit of shadows now. You can see as soon as we add the shadows, a lot of things coming alive. So watercolor works in 3 layers. You do the first wash, the primary wash, where the light happens. Then you can also introduce a mid-tones where it shows that there is something happening. The third wash is the shadow wash, or the darker tones in your painting. If you do this process properly, and everything will fall in place. And now I'm adding the details for the mid-ground building and making sure that You could see I'm also changing a lot of things from the buildings in there as well. And there's a shadow which is at the back side, and that shows that there is a plane happening on the other side of my building. So before it dries out, I'm adding the shadows for the pillars which is in the building. And so now I'm going to focus on the tree which is on the left hand side. I'm just going to add that really fast using my dagger brush. And I'm going to be focusing on the major figure now, and I want to make sure that figure reads really strong, because he or she is going to be the shadow as well. That's why I'm going darker. It doesn't make any sense now, but once we add the shadows, the whole figure will come alive. But I'm also leaving some white bits for our figure because I want to create a little bit of contrast in there. So I'll start with the shadow at the background. I'm making sure that I will auto water in my brush because I want this to be not as strong as the foreground shadow. So I'm going to add the foreground shadow, and you can also see I didn't add the car first. You will see in a second why I did that. So I'm going to add the shadows first, and I'm making sure that it's a little bit lighter in the midground, but as it comes to the foreground, it's going to be a little bit darker. And you can see in the reference there's a lot of blue shadows happening, so I'm just adding that blue cooler shadows in there. And it also really complements our warm building in the midground, and I'm using clean brush to take out, putting some lines to enhance perspective. And you can also see that highlight happening in our reference as well. So now, since before it dries out, I'm going to add my two cars right away. So what this does is, this does and bleeds by itself, and it creates this beautiful reflection on the road. And I'm connecting these two cars and also to the midground as well. Before it dries out, there's a little bit of patches happening in the foreground, and did that. And I also saw that the buildings in the midground is not reading well. So then I realized that I didn't add the shadows yet for those buildings. As soon as we add the shadows, the lights start appearing in our scene, and that's really important as well. And you can also see I'm also adding the shadows for the streetcar on the building, and which also creates this beautiful impression of light and shadows, as well as it creates a contrast as well. So I'm doing the same thing for a little bit of a darker shadow on the midground building. So I think we are officially done with our painting. The few things we have to take care is adding some highlights. I'm using Chinese white for this process. I'm also using right off the tube without using any water in it. When you do this process, make sure that not to overdo it, because sometimes I also overdo it, but I'm also making sure to just to bring back some of the highlights I missed to bring it back. So that's the whole point of doing it. And this also enhances the lighting a little bit better in our scene, and it just captures the moods a little bit better than that. And this also helps to show like headlights from our cars as well. And there's also a highlight which is happening on the streetcar, and that's a really important highlight, and that will make the whole reflection on the glass as well as for the cars. So a few things left to do. I'm just going to add those street wires which connects the street poles and lights, and this also other way of enhancing perspective, and it also give this directional lines to take us into the painting. And there's also a few dark bits here and there, and I'm also adding that as well. So that's it, folks. And watercolor needs this white tape, so I'm also adding the tape just to see how my frame painting looks like at the end. So now it's your turn. Take my drawing template and reference, and let's see what you can come up with. Thanks again for watching this winter evening video tutorial with me. Let me know what you guys think about this video in the comment section. If you want me to cover any of the subjects in watercolors, write me at watercolorimpressions@gmail.com or comment below. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And please do share with your friends and family. And good luck with your painting, folks.